So we have our audience connected already, and we're 2 minutes late. So we're officially starting right now Nature in and Across Cities, the Metropolitan Comparative Study launch event. I am Lia Brum, Research and Policy Officer at Metropolis, and for the next hour, I'll be moderating this event. At first, I'd like to give this warm welcome to our 6 great speakers and audience who are connecting live from such a vast array of time zones, from Brazil to Australia. And also to the Metropolis staff and interpreters who are supporting us behind the screen. I am based in Barcelona, although I am with this picture of the Kunming forest. And this is an event organized by Metropolis with the support of the metropolitan area of Barcelona and with the collaboration of ICLE. It's also part of the Cities with Nature Biodiversity. Cities with Nature is an initiative founded by ICLE, the Nature Conservancy, and the International Union for Conservation of Nature, which recognizes and enhances the value of nature in and around cities across the world. So why do I have this picture of the Kunming forest behind me? This is just because we're seizing the occasion of COP-15, also known as the United Nations Biodiversity Conference, whose high-level segment was ended last week, and in fact, the second part will take place in May. We believe this was good timing for us to launch our newest publication, which is called Nature in and Across Cities: Metropolitan Approaches to Biodiversity Conservation. Today, we're having a series of speakers who have contributed to the publication from the experiences of their cities, and also one of the co-authors of the report as a speaker. The publication is now already available for free download at the Metropolis website, and also translations to Spanish and French will be available very soon, so stay tuned. I would like to inform you that once you are on Zoom already and you probably clicked OK, that this event is being recorded and broadcast live on the Metropolis YouTube channel, and it's also being covered on Twitter. So if you want to, as an attendee, join the conversation live on Twitter, please use the hashtag Cities with Nature on your posts. And then once who are really the registered participants who are joining us on Zoom, we will be very happy to receive any questions you may have to speakers during this hour through the chat box that is available on Zoom. So at the end of the session, if time allows, we'll see how we manage the presentations. We will try to respond them live. Otherwise, we will make sure that the questions are directed, they arrive to speakers directly as we have the direct contact with them. So just to finishing this introductions and all the ritualistic part of Zoom, let's just start with the best, introducing you to Ariana Dickey, research fellow in urban sustainability at the University of Melbourne and co-author of Nature in and Across Cities. She's going to share as a summary of our new publication and its main highlights. Ariana, over to you.
Thanks very much, Leah. Before I get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands from where I'm speaking this evening. I pay my respects to the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and I invite the audience to take a moment to reflect and acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which you live. So thank you so much to Metropolis for hosting this event, as well as ICLE Cities with Nature for their support tonight. In addition to all of the amazing case studies that I got from Metropolis, Cities with Nature was an invaluable resource while writing this report. So there's a wealth of information and case studies on urban nature around the world. So I encourage those of you in the audience who aren't yet familiar with the resource to take a look. Thanks also to the report co-authors, Kathy Oak, Judy Bush, and Amy Haas for writing this report with me, as well as ICLE's Ingrid Kotze and Rob McDonald for the Nature Conservancy for your invaluable input. So on to the report then. As you know, because you've all chosen to be here tonight, the report discusses and proposes actions for conserving urban biodiversity. It has 5 chapters, with each chapter structured around the 3 dimensions of the framework proposed by the Intergovernmental Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services, or IPBES. Before I get into the chapter themes, I first want to explain what are the three dimensions of the IPBES framework. So they're shown here in the middle of the slide. The first dimension is nature for nature. By this, we mean accommodating and caring for nature for the sake of nature in recognition of its intrinsic value. The second dimension is nature for society. By this, we mean accounting for nature through its benefit to humanity, for example, in the form of ecosystem services, such as the ability for urban green spaces to improve water quality, mitigate stormwater runoff, and reduce urban heat island effect. The third dimension is nature for culture. This refers to the value humans derive from and the connections they feel towards nature, whether that's through cultural connection or from interacting with nature through recreation or for religious reasons and beyond. So as I mentioned, there are 5 topical chapters in the report. Looking at each chapter through these 3 dimensions, nature for nature, nature for society, and nature for culture. The report explores these topics, which are listed on the screen in the far left column. In addition to its analysis of each of these topical themes through the IPBES framework, the report surveys policy and action taken by cities internationally relating to the topical themes, including, for example, the relearning and reskilling programs to celebrate Indigenous food traditions in Winnipeg, Canada, sponge cities in China, and creek restoration in Bogota, Colombia. It also provides an overview of the governance of urban nature by chapter theme and makes recommendations for actions cities can take to implement urban nature. Each chapter has a suite of online resources urban actors can access to bring nature into their own city and concludes with a case study. So we're very lucky here tonight to have representatives from some of our case study cities and cities who are included in the report, who will be able to share their experiences beyond that which was documented in the report from desktop research. Some highlights of the report include proposed actions for how cities can foreground Indigenous peoples' knowledge and stewardship for collaborative approaches to restoring urban nature. It also includes an explanation of how biodiversity underpins each of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and an overview of the climate risks and urban impacts that nature-based solutions can mitigate. So I'll leave it there, and I encourage you all to read the report yourself. I've just scratched the surface of what's in there. Hopefully that's whet your appetite. But I'll now pass the proverbial mic to Councillor Amanda Stone. Councillor Stone is a councillor at the City of Yarra in Australia, as well as chair of ICLEI Oceania Regional Executive, representative of Oceania on the ICLEI Global Executive, and special advisor to ICLEI on nature, biodiversity, and ecosystem restoration. Over to you, Amanda.
Thank you, Ariana. I just need to work out how to share my screen, and I will work that out any minute now. And here we go. Is that working? I did it. Great. It's a wonderful pleasure to be here and to have this working. And before I start, I too will acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm on tonight, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. It really is great to be here to join this Cities with Nature webinar and the launch of this excellent metropolis study of 5 cities who are bringing nature back into their cities. It's such an important subject right now with the biodiversity and climate crises that we're all facing and the need for urgent action on both. After decades and probably centuries of locking nature out of our cities, we're now welcoming it back because nature and biodiversity provide the foundations of human existence. Without either, we really can't exist. Biodiversity is the basis of our food, our medicine, our fuels, and our livelihoods. It supports our economies, our health, and our well-being. It's really fundamental. Nature provides free goods and services that support urban infrastructure, local economies, and contribute to health and well-being. It provides clean air, water, soil, food, flood protection, temperature control, and much more. Almost every resource that humankind uses on a day-to-day basis relies directly or indirectly on nature. The benefits that we derive from nature, these ecosystem services, give us provisioning and regulating and habitat and cultural services. They're simply part of who we are. But the science is very clear. We've reached universal tipping points on both climate and biodiversity. The IPCC estimates that global warming is likely to reach 1.5 degrees between 2030 and 2052. And on biodiversity, the IPBES that Ariana referred to warns us that 1 million species are threatened by extinction, and the very likely rapid decline of nature, loss of biodiversity and ecosystem integrity will actually undermine our efforts on 80% of the assessed Sustainable Development Goals targets. That's not good news. COP-15, the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on Biological Diversity, was postponed from 2020 to this month in Kunming, China. It's now been framed in two parts. Part one was held last week, as we've heard, and part two will be held next year. The aim of COP-15 is to endorse a post-2020 global biodiversity framework. Draft one of that framework was released in July this year, and it was tabled for discussion at an intersessional open-ended working group in August and September. This framework sets out an ambitious plan to implement a broad-based actions to bring about a transformation in society's relationship with biodiversity. Very big picture. Ensuring that by 2050, the shared vision of living in harmony with nature is fulfilled. The framework has 21 targets, 10 milestones, and they're proposed for 2030 en route to this living with harmony with nature by 2050. And it adopts a whole of government approach which recognises multi-level governance and specifically recognises the need for support from cities and subnational governments in implementing the framework, as well as the whole of society approach. But most importantly, the framework includes a means of implementation in line with the convention and its two protocols, as well as mechanisms for monitoring, reporting and review. It's got accountability built in. Negotiations on the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework have been deferred now to an in-person meeting of the CBD Intersessional Open-Ended Working Group, which will take place in Geneva in January, and it will be tabled at COP-15 Part 2 in Kunming, China, in hopefully an in-person event in April, May next year. The COP was officially opened last week during a hybrid event and during which the Kunming Declaration was adopted. And this is where parties committed to develop, adopt and implement an effective post-2020 global biodiversity framework that would put biodiversity on a path to recovery by 2030 at the latest, and towards a full realisation of the 2050 vision of living in harmony with nature. And so to the role of local and subnational governments in this important process. The very first plan of action on subnational governments, cities and other local authorities for biodiversity was adopted in 2010 in Japan with the Aichi biodiversity targets at COP10. 10 years later, the Edinburgh process was launched by the Scottish Government in partnership with ICLEI and others as a commitment to continue fulfilling our responsibilities for biodiversity at subnational levels this decade. So the Edinburgh Declaration is a political declaration. It will represent the high-level aims of subnational and local governments for the post-2020 framework. And so far, 180 local and subnational governments across the world support the Edinburgh Declaration, and this number's growing. And we hope that perhaps some of you tonight might consider adopting it too. The declaration highlights the role of subnational government, cities and local authorities as key partners in the implementation of the framework. By reducing threats to biodiversity, meeting people's needs through sustainable use and benefit sharing, developing the right tools and solutions, and through their actions in implementing and mainstreaming biodiversity across all levels to ensure that support mechanisms and enabling conditions are in place. So how will this actually work? The post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework notes the implementation will be supported through an enhanced multidimensional approach to planning, monitoring, reporting and review with an updated action plan for subnational governments, cities and other local authorities for biodiversity. The action plan was tabled by the UK government at the formal virtual meeting of the CBD subsidiary body on implementation in May, June this year, and it received strong support from some of the CBD parties. In fact, there were no dissenting voices from the CBD parties, so the Secretariat was able to proceed with the preparation of a conference room paper for adoption at the next in-person meeting of the parties in Geneva in January 2022. So it looks set, the CBD looks set to adopt this conference room paper at the COP-15 meeting in Part 2 in Kunming, making this for the second time the only multilateral environmental agreement with a consistent 10-year plan for the engagement of subnational governments, cities and other local authorities. It's really significant because altogether it takes a framework beyond words to actions and a level of accountability. At the recent CBD COP-15 opening plenary on the 11th of October and beyond, and the high-level segment that was held on the 12th and 13th of October, the ICLEI Secretary-General, Gino von Wegen, delivered statements on behalf of the local and subnational government major group to the CBD parties. And I'd like to conclude with some of his words because they say a lot. As nations deliberate in Kunming and Glasgow on the biodiversity and climate crises, we stand at a crossroads which will decide the future of our planet and our children. Cities and subnational governments are in the front lines of these crises. They are ready and committed to take an active role in the post-2020 biodiversity framework and targets to ensure a whole-of-government approach to deliver the transformative action that's needed to bend the curve in biodiversity loss and to meet the climate targets. Around 200 cities and metropolitan areas have committed to protecting nature by joining the Cities with Nature initiative, an online platform where cities share best practice to meet the biodiversity targets and reconnect people with nature. Today, we call on parties to adopt the renewed decision and plan of action at COP-15, making the CBD for the second time the only UN convention with a comprehensive action plan for engaging all levels of subnational government. So really, we cannot live without nature and biodiversity. And although we're at this crossroads, we can make decisions to reverse the destructive path we've been on and to make peace with nature, to welcome it back into our cities and make it once more an integral and valued part of our lives. We're going to hear today from some cities which are doing just that. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for joining the launch today and enjoy the presentations.
Thank you so much, Councillor Stone. It's an honor to have you here, in fact, and thank you for providing such a comprehensive context on the global agendas and the key role that subnational governments play on making and on implementing their action plans, right, their commitments. And I think I can say we are very lucky here today to have the representatives, a very good sample of representatives from subnational governments, part of the Metropolis membership, who are actually taking the lead on that. This is why I'm very happy to welcome this second part of the event, which is a panel. It's a live conversation with representatives of the metropolitan area of Barcelona, Rio de Janeiro, Kathmandu, and Durban. All of them featured on our publication that we're releasing today. And also the panel has a couple of offline contributions from Mexico City and Montreal, other two members of Metropolis highly engaged in biodiversity conservation that because of the time zone difference. It's like 4 a.m. there now. They could not join us live right now. So, as you say, we're part of nature, and so the conservation of biodiversity really affects our lives. And it's very interesting right now. I wanted to open this part showing how it really affects our daily lives. So we start sharing like very concrete examples that show how biodiversity is part of our lives and we're part of it, even if we live in highly urbanized areas. For this, I welcome Sanu Maya Maharjan, Assistant Director in the Department of Environment and Agriculture of Kathmandu Metropolitan City, to tell us a little bit how Kathmandu is converting its rooftops into productive spaces for gardening. Sanu, we're very happy to hear you. Please activate your microphone.
Yes, thank you very much. Good afternoon to all. Dear all participants in this important international event. This is Sanu Maya Maharjan, Deputy Director of Department of Environment and Agriculture from Kathmandu Metropolitan City. I, on behalf of Kathmandu City, this opportunity to wish our greetings and best wishes, and thank you for the opportunity to provide the participate and speak. Considering the limitation of time, I say promote the concept of rooftop farming along with organic waste, composting and water management, and study its linkage with food security and reduce vulnerability, participate particularly to climate change impacts, to promote a more sustainable urban development model for Kathmandu Metropolitan City. Kathmandu Metropolitan City has started the activity for the conversion of rooftop of building in Kathmandu into spaces, for including the growing of vegetable as well. We have Department of Environment and Agriculture as an institutional arrangement to deal with an issue related to utilization of rooftop for gardening in Kathmandu City. We have supported and promote household composting as well. We work together with NGO, CBOs, community groups, and school children to make our campaign more effective. We work together with Nepal Police as well. We support on matter related to technical issues, including creating awareness, such as training groups, meetings, and different part of city as required to inform them on site, consultant Metro FM and Delhi television program run by Kathmandu City, disseminating information on the issues to educate, inform and motivate the people on rooftop gardening. A number of people engaged in rooftop gardening has increased this year, and I hope it will continue in the years to come on as well. This shows a good sign. So I want to show some photographs of our event. I have some photographs. So this is yeah, this is the waste to energy. Main challenging is the urbanization is the main, solid waste is the main challenge. Then organic goes to the composting and they use in the rooftop. This is the sensitization workshop and the selection of household before training. Then we have also a hands-on training in the field site. So all the women's group taking a training. So this is also the selection of the demo garden in the rooftop. This is also the exposure visit like a demo garden, urine application, composting, nursery, etc. So this is also they are working in the rooftop. we are doing nowadays rooftop and the composting. We monitoring with the help of the internship student of the HICAS, agriculture student of the agriculture. They are monitoring all rooftop. We have some public exhibition also, agriculture exhibition and etc. We have some exhibition. So far the people, all the women are happy to see in his or her rooftop. This is also the some clips. This is the rooftop clips. So we have also, we have Kathmandu Metropolitan City has one FM station, and per day 10 minutes TV spot program also we have. And now just 1 month ago, we helping together with Nepal Police also, we are launching the rooftop vegetable garden in the top of the Nepal Police office. So further you can see the further information or manual you can see in the above website also. So finally, I close my very brief with thanks to all participants and associates of the major metropolitan cities. Kathmandu Metropolitan City will continue to extend its support the association of the major metropolitan cities to achieve the objective for the better metropolitan cities management. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanu, for such a great contribution. It's what it really inspires us is to see how things are happening on site, and it's very inspiring to have your contribution to the session. So spinning from one side of the globe to the other, we now travel to Brazil, where we have Débora de Barros, who woke up super early today to join us, that somehow shares a common purpose, I think, to the rooftop gardens of Nepal in a very, very interesting initiative called Hortas Cariocas, which is the translation to Portuguese is the urban vegetable farms, let's say. Débora, I really welcome you to the session, and I would like to ask you how these urban vegetable farms have been expanding and changing lives across the metropolitan area of Rio. Good morning, over to you.
Good morning for everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Débora. Now I am Undersecretary for Environment of Rio de Janeiro. And for me, it's a pleasure to present the Hortas Cariocas program. And yes, you can share. Okay, it's my presentation. Pass for the another, please. This is our slogan of the program, Hortas Cariocas. And I will present the quantity and where our gardens are located in the municipality of Rio de Janeiro. Next, please. It's just to show one of the garden. The next one. Now I will share with you the distribution of program where our gardens are located in the map on the next slide. The municipality of Rio divided into 5 plan areas, and currently in the city of Rio we have 47 gardens distributed through these 5 planning areas of the city, being 23 in communities and 24 in the public schools. Next one. Here is the largest urban garden in the Latin America, located in the community of Manguinhos, in the northern part of the city of Rio, and is characterized by having the 5th worst HDI in the municipality and a high rate of urban violence. Before the place, as used by drug addicts, and the population estimated of this complex in Manguinhos is around 36,000 inhabitants. And now I will share with you our data about implanted vegetable gardens. Okay. This I represent the implementation and the production data for the garden about last year. And you can see the divided and community and schools data. We will increasing our garden during the year at December and 2020. In the last year at schools, we have 20 implanted vegetable gardens. And in communities, around 18 communities. For the next one, please. Okay. I emphasize the food production in the school and school garden is consumed by students in their schools meals. And for vegetable gardens in the communities, half of the production is donated to the community and the other half is sold by vegetable gardens works, generating additional income for these workers who already receive a grant. For last year, the annual production was approximately 52 tons. Next, please. And the food is to the food market in the agroecological fairs in the next year is approximately 20 tons sold around the city. You can pass. The number of works in the program, it's approximately 108. And the schools in the communities, you can visit these gardens and learning from the works important organic farming. We have another slide, please. Now you can see the students visiting and learning about the importance of our gardens. Okay, the schools in the communities visit at the visit gardens. We have the principal municipal agroecological units. It's located at Madureira Park at the next photo. You can pass. This local is our principal center of organic productions located at Madureira Park, where we have an environmental education center too. The next one. You can see before and after, and to choose the location for installation of the vegetable garden is based in this majority of the recovery of degraded areas. And near communities too. It's one of these requirements to install the vegetable gardens. And we reuse organic material to be reused as input for vegetable gardens. You can share. Just to show you about our sustainability tool. The next one, please. And this is the new technology recently inaugurated, the aquaponic systems, which is a food production system that combines conventional culture, breeding aquatic organics with hydroponics in the symbiotic environment. It's a pilot unit, and we have great results with this process, and we want to install in more units around the city. This is only an overview of the program, and thank you for the opportunity to present, to show for us. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Deborah, for such a fascinating and inspiring presentation. I myself personally am even more touched, as Rio is my hometown, my home city. I feel even more emotional about it, but I think it really touches our lives, our hearts, and how the connection of how nature conservation can have such positive impacts on our lives. Thank you so much for your experience, for sharing your experience with us. To make a transition to our next block of live panelists who are sharing some broader perspectives from their territories, I would like to share with you now a video from Mexico City, whose government has just launched a month ago its strategy for the conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity. I just seize the opportunity to remind you that we have interpretation from Spanish to English, the other way around as well. So this is going to be a video in Spanish. If you'd like, you can select here in the Zoom tool the interpretation for it. So, Julia, are you ready to share our screen? I think that we had a little technical problem and you couldn't hear the original sound in Spanish, but we had the sound in English functioning and there were the subtitles of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. So as you can see, our cities and metropolitan areas can and should be biodiversity hotspots. And I think this is the greatest case of Durban in South Africa. Therefore, I'm pleased to welcome Sabelo Kosi, Acting Senior Manager of Biodiversity Planning, Environmental Planning and Climate Protection Department of eThekwini Municipality. Sabelo, I would like you to tell us a little bit about the management of Durban's metropolitan open space system and how does the municipality partner with diverse stakeholders towards biodiversity conservation, environmental management, and climate change adaptation. Over to you, Sabelo. We can see just your picture. If you could activate your camera.
Thank you very much, Leah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm on my second device. On my primary device, I've got some connectivity issues. but if you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you, yes.
Okay. Do you mind just sharing my presentation for me? Unfortunately, yeah, sorry at the moment
Yes.
that you're only seeing my
No
my
problem.
picture. My photograph was up earlier, and yeah, as you've said, yeah, I'm currently acting senior manager for biodiversity planning in the environmental planning and climate protection department at the Kunming municipality, which is the city of Durban. Yeah, in South Africa. I cannot see the visuals as yet. I've just got just quite a brief outline for my presentation this morning. Yeah, I'm not seeing it at the moment, but I think for me the first point that I really want to make here is that where Durban is located, that we are essentially in the we're essentially at the center of a global biodiversity hotspot. So there are, for those of you who know, that there are 36 global biodiversity hotspots that exist in the world, and Durban is sitting in the middle of one of them. I'm actually on slide 3 at the moment, and which is the Maputo, Pondal, and Albany hotspots, as you can see on that map with that white demarcation. And I think in order for one to qualify to be a global biodiversity hotspot, in that there has to be quite high levels of species endemism, but also where you've got at least 1,500 species of vascular plants, and you should be also having lost quite a lot of biodiversity due to land use change. And so the Durban context is essentially one of those where we've lost quite a lot of our natural habitat, but also where we have over 2,000 vascular plants that have actually been described within our municipal area. So those are some of the key information just about Durban, but also does make us kind of like be in a low choice planning environment. Next slide, please. And then the next point is really just in terms of the approach that we've taken as a municipality, where before we develop our open space planning system through expert knowledge, but currently we're using what is known as a systematic conservation assessment, which is more of a scientifically defensible approach. It's also repeatable. I think it just helps us in terms of having high levels of confidence in our decision making and in using information which is generated by the systematic conservation assessment to undertake city planning. So we currently are within the planning function of the municipality, and we've been able to integrate our environmental spatial layer into our planning context. Next slide, please. And so through the systematic conservation assessment, what we've been able to achieve was essentially to produce what is known as a Durban Metropolitan Open Space System. For short, we call it DMOS, which is really a series of interconnected open spaces that are basically go across, that link nature reserves that are owned by the municipality, that are owned by other government agencies. And so the picture that you're seeing on there is essentially our environmental spatial layer, which is DMOS, which is a product of the systematic conservation assessment. And so what we use this particular environmental layer for is that as a municipality, we are required to have an integrated development plan, which is an IDP, where we set the vision for the municipality. And for us, it is being Africa's most livable and caring country by 2030. And so we're seeing that it's quite important that we maintain our natural and green open spaces, but also that those open spaces are actually managed. And so one of the key things in the integrated development planning process is that you need to have a spatial development framework, again, which would show the intentions of the municipality in terms of its growth and where the municipality is actually intending to go. And so what the DMOS layer does for us is that it forms a structuring element for spatial development framework. But also we have integrated it in our land use scheme, what would be your town planning schemes, where the environmental layer has become a controlled layer where you cannot just transform or develop within the DMOS layer without having consulted the environmental planning department. So that's at least we can assess and evaluate the different proposals. Next slide, please. This is really just just also how we are. This is just a sample of how we've taken the DMOS and we are implementing different tools, and also how we're using DMOS as a strategic tool to direct our investment through different implementation programs. The picture on the top left is showing you where we are implementing what we call a large-scale green projects, where we have teams that are managing natural areas, they are clearing and managing alien plants. We also have a reforestation program. We also have what we call a land acquisition program, where we acquire environmentally sensitive land and we put that under formal conservation. And a part of that, so if you look at the picture on the top right, where it's an area where we are creating an urban and nature reserve. And what you're seeing on there are pieces of land that we have acquired, or some which are still in process, but some which are maybe not yet in process. But the whole vision is so that we create this urban conservation area. And the picture that you're looking at, we're sitting at about over 500 hectares of a nature reserve that we are creating through the land acquisition program. And once we've acquired the land, then we also would rezone that land to conservation, because you may find that some of that land is zoned for commercial use, or it might be zoned for residential use. But at the same time, if it's environmentally sensitive, so then that's why we acquire the land and then we zone it appropriately for conservation. I can go on and on about the environmental zoning process. There are also other programs where, like special rating area that we are working on. We are managing conservation areas. And that bottom picture that you're seeing on there is one of the areas where we're implementing a biodiversity stewardship program, which is mainly in your rural or traditional communities where the bulk of our natural assets actually sit. And so it's quite important where we might not have the formal say zones in those specific areas to implement other possible tools such as biodiversity stewardship. And in the urban context, I didn't include a picture here for it. We're in the city center where we have piloted essentially green roofs. And we are again, with the examples that have been shared earlier, it's mostly around agriculture and farming. But from my department perspective, we mainly have been implementing an indigenous plant green roofs, which have demonstrated a value in terms of bringing back urban biodiversity, but also in terms of stormwater management, urban runoff, cooling effects within the urban context. So those are some of the benefits that we've seen through our green roof pilot project. So those few words, that's a Durban contribution. And next slide, please, just to say thank you for the opportunity, but also to thank my colleagues for inviting me and for doing some of this work, of which cannot happen without being involved in a team. Thanks, Leah.
Thank you, Sabelo. Thank you so much for your presentation. In fact, I think you bring a very important contribution to our conversation here, which is scale. It's zooming out a little bit and seeing how important it is to plan our urban growth, considering biodiversity and also something that in Metropolis we've been talking about a lot, biodiversity as well as pandemics or climate emergencies. Nature, at the end of the day, doesn't know about the jurisdictions of municipal governments. So, and this is why bringing this metropolitan scale, which is part of the debate of everything we do in Metropolis, bringing this discussion is important for us to understand how we can have impact results to actually accomplish the commitments, the global commitments. And this consciousness of, I believe the consciousness of the metropolitan reality is something that has been progressively growing, especially here in the metropolitan area of Barcelona, where we have a unique institution that coordinates public services across the territories of 36 municipalities in the fields of urban planning, mobility, housing, and the environment, among others. This is, we call here the AMB. And last but not least, yo cambio al español para dar la bienvenida a nuestro último ponente en directo, a Antoni Ferrero. Sí, es que yo estaba en el canal de inglés, no sé por qué. Vamos. Antoni Ferrero, coordinador general de la Oficina Técnica de la AMB. Antoni, bienvenido, muchas gracias por estar con nosotras. Me gustaría preguntar cómo relacionas todo lo que se ha compartido aquí en esta sesión y también el contenido de la publicación que lanzamos hoy con la estrategia de la AMB para soluciones basadas en la naturaleza e infraestructura verde.
Muchas gracias, Lía. Bueno, en primer lugar quiero felicitar a los autores y a ti también, Lía, como editora, por la publicación que habéis hecho, que me ha parecido extraordinaria, de verdad. Es una publicación que yo creo que es como muy clara, muy sencilla, pero que después de esta sencillez y claridad se nota un profundo trabajo y que es fruto, en fin, de todas unas reflexiones que luego las habéis sabido muy bien sintetizar. Enhorabuena por ello. Bueno, proyectar usando elementos naturales o proyectar de acuerdo con la lógica de la naturaleza. La lógica de la naturaleza es siempre positiva, es la que nos gusta, nos conduce a la naturaleza que queremos. Es siempre positiva, pues. ¿Qué papel tiene la tecnología en esta evolución de la naturaleza? ¿Qué papel tiene el urbanismo? Estas son para mí cuestiones importantes y sobre las que voy a hacer algunas reflexiones en unos pocos minutos. Un principio que parece sensato, o que parecería claro, es de que es mejor no destruir la naturaleza que reconstruirla después. Por tanto, todas aquellas actuaciones urbanísticas, de proyectos, que impliquen un mayor deterioro del soporte natural sobre el que se circunscriben, parecería que serían más positivas que aquellas que efectúan unos procesos de desconstrucción-construcción después. Esto se produce a veces porque no hay más remedio, efectivamente, ¿no? Si hay que construir una gran infraestructura o una urbanización, etcétera, pues hay que ocupar el espacio necesario para que esto sea funcional. Pero a veces también, y esto es lo preocupante, se produce porque la naturaleza que tenemos en aquel momento, en el sitio en cuestión, no nos gusta y queremos reemplazarla por otro ideal estético que no encontramos allí en aquel momento. Y esto lo podemos observar en proyectos que se están ejecutando en todo el mundo. De que, claro, a veces en el Mediterráneo no aceptamos que tenemos un clima seco, con una sequía prolongada, con unos recursos hidráulicos escasos y que por tanto no podemos hacer un paisaje como si estuviéramos en Irlanda o en Escocia o más al norte, ¿no? O en zonas tropicales. Entonces es importante situarse bien dentro del proyecto. No se trata de proyectar utilizando solo elementos naturales o solo elementos naturales que nos gustan. Se trata de proyectar con la naturaleza en un sentido funcional, en un sentido ecológico, en un sentido económico en esta cuestión. Desde el área metropolitana de Barcelona, por eso estamos dando muchísima importancia a lo que es la planificación y al planeamiento, porque es allí donde se tiene que debatir antes de actuar, ¿no? Es allí donde hay que fijar las reglas para que estos desarrollos, estos proyectos, pues se puedan hacer lo mejor posible. Tenemos una larga tradición en Cataluña de temas de planeamiento desde el 1932 con el Regional Planning de Rubió-Tudurí. En Barcelona siempre que se ha hecho un planeamiento no se ha limitado a la ciudad, sino que siempre se ha mirado al exterior. Y gracias a eso y también a factores económicos fluctuantes, pues tenemos espacios que ahora constituyen nuestra infraestructura verde metropolitana. Nuestra infraestructura verde metropolitana ocupa más del 50% de toda la superficie del área metropolitana de Barcelona. Tenemos 2 ríos, tenemos 42 kilómetros de playas, Tenemos 3 parques naturales de mediana dimensión, de alrededor de 10.000 hectáreas cada uno. Tenemos un parque agrario de 3.000 hectáreas. Tenemos una red de parques metropolitanos que se ocupan de hacer un poco lo que serían los saltos entre las ciudades y el exterior, y también dar, digamos, servicio a los ciudadanos. Y esta es la infraestructura verde con la que nosotros trabajamos y con la que nos sentimos cómodos y nos sentimos que es la idea que tenemos, sobre la cual tenemos que profundizar aplicando las soluciones basadas en la naturaleza, pero desde el aspecto que comentaba antes, desde un aspecto funcional, no solo porque sean naturales, no solo porque nos gustan, sino porque entendamos que hay una interacción entre las ciudades, la naturaleza, y que todo esto produzca un efecto positivo global. La infraestructura verde metropolitana es asimétrica, evidentemente, porque cada uno de los temas que tocamos tienen ámbitos distintos. No es lo mismo el agua, que la energía, que la biodiversidad, que la salud. Por tanto, hay elementos de esta infraestructura que se extienden mucho más allá de los límites metropolitanos, hay otros que se concretan en zonas más reducidas. Eso quiere decir de que tenemos que trabajar en todas las escalas. Pero el que trabajemos en escalas pequeñas no quiere decir que no pensemos en la grande, y viceversa. Pero hay que trabajar en todas las escalas y con el detalle que cada una de ellas demande. Otro aspecto importante para nosotros son los límites entre la ciudad y el espacio exterior. Tratamos de que estos límites sean cada vez más flexibles, de que las calles de la ciudad pues sean calles que tienen un porcentaje de elementos naturales que permita entregarse o expandirse hacia los espacios exteriores naturales, y viceversa, que sea fácil entrar desde los espacios naturales exteriores hasta el centro de las ciudades. Intentamos que sea una infraestructura verde con personalidad, que esté adaptada a la situación geográfica donde nos encontramos, que sea multifuncional, y damos una extraordinaria importancia a lo que es la conectividad, entendida como se entiende en ecología. No hace falta una conectividad a veces física, no son caminos, no son el imaginario de las carreteras y de que esto se conecta pues a través de elementos lineales o más o menos superficiales. La conectividad ecológica es otra cosa, ¿eh? Es una conectividad funcional, donde el conjunto trabaja junto en función de ofrecer unos servicios ambientales, unos servicios ecosistémicos maximizados en todos sus aspectos. Por tanto, trabajamos en este sentido, es decir, que frente a los diferentes tópicos que nos preocupan, biodiversidad, ciclo hidrológico, energía, residuos, salud, movilidad, intentamos pues adaptarlos a cada escala concreta, pensando siempre en este conjunto. Un elemento muy importante es las emisiones. Las emisiones, la contaminación atmosférica y la movilidad. Aquí en Barcelona tenemos una zona de bajas emisiones, 95 kilómetros cuadrados, que estamos desarrollando en estos momentos y sobre los cuales tenemos muchas esperanzas de que las podamos ampliar y que podamos conducir pues, la movilidad y las emisiones atmosféricas hacia unos niveles aceptables. Bueno, yo lo voy a dejar aquí, quería exponer estas reflexiones y en todo caso en el debate podemos profundizar en lo que queráis. Gracias.
Excelentes reflexiones. Muchas gracias, Antoni. Realmente es esto, la conectividad a la naturaleza no es lineal. Y creo que destaco aquí las cosas que comentaste, de que hay que proyectar, hay que trabajar en todas las escalas. Y aquí hemos tenido la suerte de tener un poco de muestra de todas estas escalas, de todos los niveles en que hay que trabajar de forma articulada, ¿no? Desde el huerto, en las terrazas de los edificios de Katmandú y de las escuelas de Río, hasta los planes, ¿no?, estratégicos de desarrollo, hasta las agendas globales que nos comentó la concejala Stone al principio de nuestra discusión. Entonces, esto de proyectar y trabajar usando la lógica de la naturaleza sería, pues, evidentemente lo más natural, ¿no? Pero tenemos que volver a hacer todo un ejercicio para sacar nuestra lógica lineal. Entonces, intentando hacer la lógica circular, vuelvo al principio de esta sesión, del conocimiento que nos trajo a la concejala Amanda Stone sobre las agendas globales, sobre la declaración especialmente de Edimburgo, donde hay el compromiso de los gobiernos locales para compartir un video de Montreal, de la alcaldesa Valérie Plante. Valérie Plante is, in addition to Montreal's mayor, she's also ICLEI's Global Ambassador for Local Biodiversity, and as well Metropolis Co-President for Nature, Biodiversity, and Mobility. So with this video, it's a little input and wrap up it gives to us. We hope this time the sound will work. We'll see. She speaks in French, and there's a little bit of audio in English. Let's see if we don't run into technical problems. Let's give it a try. But we'll have interpretation in Spanish still. That's the very linear logic of computers. They're not designed as much. Let's see.
Leah, I downloaded it also. I can play it from my screen if that's helpful. Do you want me to try that?
Okay, please. Yes.
Okay.
Then Ariana, if you probably you will have to remove your I think your speaker, your headset.
Headphones?
Yeah, your headphones. Yes. Because, and put your volume up very high.
Julia got it.
Yeah, it's still with no sound. We cannot hear it. You hear it? The sound?
I can't hear it now, but Julia, do you want me to try playing it from my computer? I think maybe if we're playing straight from the QuickTime player, I can give it a whirl.
Many key initiatives by a host of international organizations and networks this past decade have strengthened the role of local and subnational governments in contributing to the objectives of the Convention on Biological Diversity. These achievements provide a sound foundation and justification for a more ambitious and active role for local and subnational governments in delivering a new global framework of targets under the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. As we work towards the UN's 2050 vision of living in harmony with nature, there is a growing urgency for collective and large-scale action to protect the biodiversity in and around cities, to prevent irreversible loss and damage to the natural systems we depend on. We need to rebalance our relationship with nature and set a new nature-positive development path in order to secure a sustainable and healthy future for all.
Les villes sont aux premières lignes des changements climatiques et des autres crises environnementales et sanitaires. C'est pourquoi, partout à travers le monde, les villes sont déjà en mode action pour protéger les écosystèmes, que ce soit par la mise en place de ceintures vertes, de corridors de biodiversité, d'aires protégées ou par la plantation d'arbres. Montréal et tant d'autres villes du monde répondent présentes. Et les villes, tout comme les gouvernements régionaux et locaux, sont prêtes à un partenariat pour un agenda mondial ambitieux en matière de biodiversité, tel qu'exprimé dans la Déclaration d'Édimbourg.
It worked this time. Thank you for the efforts. I heard the sound. I hope you all heard the sound as well, that you could follow. Thumbs up if you did. Thank you very much. In fact, we are already running against time, out of time for six minutes after the scheduled end of our event. So we actually will not have a lot of room for discussion, unfortunately. But I really wanted to finish, to conclude this event with a reflection, because I think we still take for granted that we are part of biodiversity. And although we are just one of the more than 8 million species on the planet, but I think that at least the people who are here connected in this session and working together, I think we already are aware of that. And the way to actually make take this message through and make it happen, and in reality, make it concrete, is working as a network. And this is, I think that this event, this publication is a great example of that, how we just put our work together of different networks of local governments together and the University of Melbourne, and all the knowledge that we have, we are sharing and making the connections to multiply them, to scale up, because that's the end of it, and our end goal, to have such an impact, to change the mindset and change and actually ensure our survival and the survival of species on the planet. So I really thank you, all the speakers, for your very valuable inputs. Extremely, well, extraordinary, I must say. I'm thrilled to hear you. Thank you for the audience to connect with us today. And also thank you to our technical team. Thank you, Julia, there in Metropolis, the Metropolis office, and the interpreters from Interidea. And well, I'll hope that we keep in touch and that we can boost our connections more and more and strengthen the impact of our jobs. Thank you very much. Have a great evening there and on the east side of the world, and have a great day on the west side of